The massive alien fleet loomed ominously above Earth, its vast ships forming an impenetrable wall in space. General Thurkin stood at the helm of his flagship, watching with a cold gaze as his fleet prepared to launch the final strike on the defenseless planet below. Earth had resisted long enough, and now it was time to crush their last hopes. The fleet was technologically advanced beyond anything Earth could imagine. Cloaking devices shimmered across their hulls, making them invisible to Earth's radar. Eye-controlled drones hovered silently, awaiting their orders to wipe out the human defenses. Their weapons were capable of destroying entire cities with a single shot. The sheer power of the fleet made Thurkin confident that this would be a quick and easy victory. He had heard stories of human bravery, but he dismissed them as nothing more than myths. He believed humans were weak, primitive creatures who stood no chance against the might of his empire. As the fleet advanced, Earth's defenses appeared weak and outdated. The human military, though brave, had no match for the alien technology. Thurkin watched as Earth's defense systems flickered on, firing missiles and lasers in a desperate attempt to stop the inevitable. But the alien ships simply absorbed the attacks, their shields undisturbed. The general issued a command over the comms. Commence the attack. Wipe them out. But just as the order was given, something unexpected happened. The lone figure appeared in the distance, standing boldly in the middle of the chaos. It was a human soldier, Corporal John Bonner. He stepped forward from the shadows of Earth's ruined defense base, his figure barely visible against the backdrop of explosions and the vastness of space. The sight of this lone soldier, standing against an alien fleet, seemed almost laughable to Thurkin. What could one human soldier do against such overwhelming odds? Bonner raised his weapon, a sleek futuristic rifle, and fired with pinpoint accuracy. In a single motion, he disabled an incoming drone. The alien machine, which had been cloaked and invisible moments before, fell from the sky in a burst of sparks and metal. Thurkin watched in shock as Bonner continued to move with speed and precision, taking down drone after drone. His suit, a mix of advanced armor and human ingenuity, flickered with energy as he moved. The human soldier was far from the helpless target Thurkin had expected. Bonner's every move was calculated. He darted from cover to cover, dodging laser blasts and returning fire with a lethal accuracy that stunned the alien forces. The drones, normally so efficient in their attacks, struggled to keep up with Bonner's fast, unpredictable movements. One by one, they fell to the ground, their once impressive technology now no match for a single human. Thurkin's heart raced as he watched the scene unfold. His fleet, equipped with cloaking devices, AI drones, and advanced weaponry, was being taken down by one soldier. The images from the battlefield were a shock to his system. How could this be possible? How could such a fragile species exhibit such strength? Bonner moved like a force of nature, unstoppable and relentless. He had the advantage of not just technology, but also the sheer willpower that came from humanity's survival instinct. The visual spectacle was almost cinematic. Explosions rocked the landscape, filling the sky with flashes of light. Drones, once invisible, fell from the air like discarded toys. Lasers whizzed past Bonner, narrowly missing him as he moved through the wreckage, a blur of action and purpose. His weapon fired again and again, and with each shot, another drone disintegrated. Thurkin, from the safety of his command ship, watched the battle unfold on a holographic display. His eyes widened with disbelief as he saw Bonner's skill. The human soldier didn't just fight with technology. He fought with something far more dangerous: his mind. Each move Bonner made was calculated, each action born from the human experience of survival. He wasn't just a soldier, he was a symbol of human strength. As Bonner continued to fight, Thurkin's thoughts began to spiral. The general had always believed that his empire's advanced technology would be enough to crush any enemy. But this human, this lone soldier, was proving him wrong. The general had seen wars before, countless battles against alien civilizations, but he had never seen anything like this. Humans, weak and primitive, were supposed to fall easily before his superior might. Yet, here was Bonner, defying all expectations, taking down the best that his fleet could throw at him. Tharkin's confidence began to waver. The more he watched Bonner fight, the more he realized that humanity was far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. What was it about these humans that made them so resilient? How could they fight with such determination, even in the face of overwhelming odds? The general's mind raced. Was this what the humans were truly capable of? Was this strength, this will to fight, the true power of humanity? For the first time in years, Tharkin began to doubt the very foundation of his beliefs. He had been taught to see humans as weak, as a species not worth the Empire's time. But now, watching Bonner fight, he realized that humanity was something far greater than he had been led to believe. A wave of confusion swept over him. His entire life had been dedicated to the Empire, to the conquest of weaker species. He had always believed that the might of his fleet and the power of his technology made him invincible. But now, as he watched Bonner take on wave after wave of alien soldiers, Tharkin realized that his confidence was a lie. The human soldier wasn't just surviving. He was thriving. He was beating the odds in a way that no one, not even Tharkin himself, had expected. The general stood frozen, his hands gripping the controls of his ship, unsure of what to do next. He had issued the command to attack, but now he wasn't sure if he could follow through. He ordered his fleet to hold fire, but the damage was already done. The attack had stalled. For the first time in his life, Tharkin found himself questioning his mission. The suspense built with every passing moment. Bonner continued to fight, his every move calculated and decisive. He wasn't just fighting for survival, he was fighting to show the alien general that humanity would not be easily defeated. The battle raged on, but now, there was something more at stake than just victory or defeat. There was a question of what it meant to be human, and Tharkin was forced to confront that question in a way he had never imagined. As Bonner took down the last of the alien drones, Tharkin gave the order to pause the attack. His mind was spinning, his thoughts tangled in confusion and disbelief. He couldn't explain why he hesitated, why he felt this strange pull toward the humans. But as the dust settled on the battlefield, one thing was clear. The war had just become far more complicated than he had ever anticipated. The first encounter had set the stage for something greater. The alien general, once certain of his victory, now found himself questioning everything he had ever known about the humans, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The tension was palpable as General Tharkin stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the holographic display that showed the chaos unfolding below. His fleet, once a symbol of the Galactic Empire's dominance, was now caught in an unexpected struggle. One human soldier, Corporal John Bonner, had single-handedly stopped the advance of his eye-controlled drones, sending shockwaves through the general's strategic mind. Tharkin had always believed in the superiority of his people. His empire had conquered countless worlds, obliterating civilizations that dared to oppose them. His fleet was unbeatable, equipped with the most advanced technology the galaxy had to offer. Cloaking devices rendered his ships invisible to enemy sensors. AI drones, flawless in their precision, destroyed any who stood in their way. Yet here he was, watching a human soldier defy all expectations. As Bonner continued his relentless assault on the alien drones, Tharkin's mind wandered back to the countless worlds he had destroyed in the name of his empire. He had never questioned the morality of their actions. They were simply the superior race, and the lesser species had to bow or perish. But now, as he watched Bonner's courage and skill on full display, the general felt an unsettling doubt creeping into his thoughts. The memories of past wars flashed through his mind. He remembered the countless species that had fallen before the might of his empire. He recalled the smug satisfaction of his superiors as they erased entire civilizations with a sweep of their advanced weaponry. But what if, just for a moment, they had been wrong? What if the very species they had considered beneath them had the strength to resist in ways they never anticipated? Tharkin clenched his fists, his mind waging an internal battle. He had always been proud of his empire's methods, ruthless, efficient, and unstoppable. But now, watching this human soldier fight, he was beginning to question the cost of that victory. Bonner wasn't just fighting with weapons, he was fighting with something far deeper, a will to survive that seemed to burn brighter than anything the general had ever encountered. The general's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden burst of activity on the battlefield. Bonner's team, a small group of human soldiers, had joined the fray. The group used guerrilla tactics, disappearing into the smoke and debris, attacking from unexpected angles. They weren't using the same advanced weaponry as the alien forces, but they made up for it with raw ingenuity. They used human-made tech, combining it with the environment to create traps and ambushes that caught the alien soldiers off guard. Bonner and his team moved like shadows, fast and efficient. The alien soldiers, with their sleek, robotic forms, were powerful, but they lacked the flexibility that humans brought to the table. The contrast was stark. The alien forces had strength and speed, but the human soldiers had heart, something that made all the difference. Tharkin could see the battle unfold on his screen, and it was clear. The humans were fighting with a kind of determination that the Empire had never encountered before. As the alien soldiers were slowly picked off by the human team, Tharkin's unease deepened. He knew that this was not just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the very soul of the human species. They had something he couldn't understand. It wasn't just their technology or their numbers. It was their spirit, their resolve. And that made them far more dangerous than anything he had ever faced before. The general's mind raced. He was a soldier, just like Bonner, but he had always been guided by logic and reason. The Empire's superiority was irrefutable. Yet, watching Bonner's tactical brilliance, Tharkin couldn't shake the feeling that humanity might possess something far more powerful than mere technology. What if their raw determination was their greatest strength? What if that was the one thing that made them unstoppable? His thoughts were interrupted once again, this time by an incoming report from one of his drones. Tharkin ordered the drone to scan Bonner's ship, curious to learn more about the human technology. The results came in quickly, but they were not what he expected. Bonner's ship was not technologically superior. It wasn't outfitted with the kind of cutting-edge weapons or cloaking systems that Tharkin's fleet possessed. In fact, it was a simple human vessel, nothing special in terms of design or power. But what stood out were the modifications. The ship had been enhanced with a series of jury-rigged systems, reflecting human resourcefulness and perseverance. Tharkin's eyes widened as he saw the makeshift weapons, the crude but effective shield systems, and the modifications that had been added to the ship over time. This wasn't a ship built for perfection. It was a ship built for survival. And that, Tharkin realized, was something that could not be overlooked. The revelation hit Tharkin like a blow to the chest. How could this be? How could these humans, with their inferior technology, still stand against the might of the Empire? The more he watched Bonner and his team fight, the more he realized that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology. It was in their spirit, their refusal to accept defeat. He stood motionless, his thoughts swirling in a whirlwind of doubt and confusion. His entire life had been dedicated to the conquest of weaker species, to the belief that his empire's superiority was unchallenged. But now, in the face of this lone human soldier and his team, Tharkin was forced to confront the possibility that the Empire's approach had been flawed. Was it possible that humanity, with all its flaws and imperfections, could still rise to challenge the might of the Galactic Empire? The question echoed in Tharkin's mind, drowning out everything else. Could he, a general who had led countless campaigns and destroyed countless worlds, truly be facing an enemy he could not defeat? And if humanity's strength was rooted in something deeper than technology, how could he ever hope to conquer them? As he stood there, staring at the holographic display, Tharkin knew that the battle was far from over. But now, it was not just about defeating the human soldiers. It was about understanding them. It was about learning what made them so resilient, so willing to fight against insurmountable odds. And that, for Tharkin, was a far more dangerous challenge than any weapon or fleet could ever present. The suspense hung in the air as the general weighed his next move. He had always believed that his empire's might was enough to crush any resistance. But now he was beginning to see that the real battle wasn't just about power, it was about will. And that was something that no amount of technology could defeat. The tension was thick in the air as General Tharkin stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the Earth below. His fleet, an overwhelming force of advanced technology and AI-controlled drones, had been prepared to strike Earth with the full force of the Galactic Empire. The plan was clear: destroy Earth's defenses, wipe out humanity, and send a message that no one could ever defy the Empire. But then, everything changed. One human soldier, Corporal John Bonner, had defied the alien forces, taking down drones and machines that seemed invincible to anyone else. Tharkin watched Bonner's battle from his command station, unable to take his eyes off the way the human soldier fought. His tactics were unlike anything Tharkin had seen before. While his drones and ships were designed for efficiency, the humans were fighting with something deeper: raw courage and the will to survive against impossible odds. Tharkin couldn't understand it. His species had destroyed countless civilizations, left entire planets in ruin, and yet here was this lone human soldier standing up to him. He'd always thought of the Empire as the pinnacle of power. His people had built a civilization that stretched across galaxies, unchallenged and unmatched. But now, watching Bonner and his team take on wave after wave of alien soldiers, Tharkin felt an uncomfortable shift in his beliefs. The humans had something that his empire didn't. They had the strength of will, the determination to fight back, no matter the odds. And that, Tharkin realized, was a force that could not be underestimated. Still, he was the general. He was the leader of this operation. He had made countless decisions that led to the fall of empires, to the destruction of worlds. But now, as he watched the human soldier defy his forces, he wondered, could this truly be the end of the Empire's dominance? Could one human, fighting with nothing more than his sheer determination, really change the course of the battle? Tharkin's mind raced. It was time to make a decision. He could feel the weight of it, the responsibility of every life lost, every world conquered. The Empire had never failed before. He could not allow this human resistance to continue. His fleet had orders, and those orders were clear: destroy Earth, wipe out humanity, and bring an end to this fight. But as he prepared to give the command, something stopped him. He couldn't do it. Not yet. Tharkin paused, his fingers hovering over the command console. He was torn. His entire life had been dedicated to the destruction of lesser species. He had led countless campaigns, each one a testament to the Empire's power. But this time, something was different. It was the human soldier, Bonner. The way he fought, with everything he had, the way he refused to give up, even when it seemed like there was no hope. Tharkin could no longer deny it. Humanity's resilience had pierced through the Empire's arrogance, and for the first time, he doubted his own orders. It was a moment of hesitation, a moment that would change everything. But there was no time for hesitation. Tharkin quickly made up his mind. He would destroy Earth, but not yet. The humans had shown they were capable of resisting, and he would make them pay for it. The destruction of their cities would send a message. His fleet would prepare to strike. The fleet's cannons powered up, ready to fire on Earth. The alien ships hovered above the planet, poised to unleash their devastating firepower. The moment was imminent. Tharkin issued the command to fire, his voice cold and resolute. The countdown began, and for a split second, he allowed himself to believe that the destruction of Earth was inevitable. But then, just as the command was about to be carried out, something stopped him. It wasn't a technical malfunction. It wasn't a failure in his fleet's systems. It was a sudden realization, a powerful surge of emotion that he couldn't ignore. The human soldier, Bonner, had somehow gotten under his skin. The sheer courage, the heart, the unwillingness to back down. It was unlike anything Tharkin had ever witnessed. Tharkin's mind raced. He had always prided himself on being a decisive leader, unflinching in the face of war. But this time, the war was different. He couldn't just destroy Earth, not when he saw the human spirit in front of him. The hesitation he felt was a betrayal of everything he had ever believed in. The Empire's superiority, the idea that their conquest was justified. It all began to crumble in that moment. The decision was made. Tharkin ordered the fleet to abort the attack. The cannons powered down, and the alien ships slowly moved back, retreating into the vastness of space. It was a decision that surprised everyone aboard the fleet, and even Tharkin himself wasn't sure what to make of it. He couldn't explain it, but for the first time, he didn't want to destroy Earth. Instead, he wanted to understand humanity. He wanted to understand what made them so relentless, so determined. Back on Earth, the humans had no idea that the destruction they had feared was averted. Bonner and his team were focused on their mission, unaware that their bravery had caused the alien general to question his own actions. But as they prepared to launch an assault on a nearby alien outpost, a message arrived for Bonner. The message was brief, but its meaning was clear. Tharkin had hesitated. The attack on Earth had been called off for now. Bonner read the message with disbelief. He couldn't understand why the general had paused. They had been fighting for survival, but this was more than just a fight for survival. It was a fight for hope. The fact that Tharkin had hesitated meant something. It meant the general was seeing humanity in a new light. And that meant there was a chance, a real chance, for humanity to fight back and win. As Bonner and his team moved forward with their mission, they knew that this wasn't just about stopping the aliens anymore. It was about something bigger. It was about the future of humanity. They weren't just fighting for their own survival. They were fighting for hope, for a better future. And as they prepared to take on the alien forces once again, they carried the weight of every soul they had lost in the conflict. The fight had become personal, but it was also something more. It was a fight for the soul of humanity itself. The battle for Earth was far from over. But now, it wasn't just about defeating the aliens. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity could rise above their oppression, their fear, and their limitations. It was about proving that no matter how powerful the enemy, no matter how impossible the odds, humanity would never back down. The tension in the command ship was thick. General Tharkin, once a proud and ruthless leader of the Galactic Empire, now found himself in turmoil. For years, he had crushed civilizations, leaving them in ruins. He had believed in the superiority of his people, the empire that spanned across galaxies, undefeated and unstoppable. But now, everything had changed. A human soldier, Corporal John Bonner, had defied all expectations, and that act of bravery had shaken Tharkin to his core. His fleet had been poised to destroy Earth, but something in Bonner's relentless fighting spirit had given Tharkin pause. The attack, which had been mere formality in his eyes, now seemed far from certain. As he watched Bonner single-handedly dismantle wave after wave of his forces, the alien general couldn't help but feel a deep, unsettling sense of respect for the human soldier. It was the kind of respect he had never shown toward any enemy before. And in that moment, Tharkin realized he could not go through with the destruction of Earth. His decision to call off the attack had surprised even him. And the more he thought about it, the more it gnawed at him. His entire life had been devoted to the Empire's cause, and yet here he was, questioning everything he had ever known. What was it about humanity that made them so resilient? How had they fought back with such raw, unrefined determination? This was not just a battle. This was something deeper. Tharkin couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was at play. He knew what he had to do. He couldn't face his own fleet again after what had just happened. They would not understand his hesitation. His departure from the Empire would be viewed as a betrayal, and he would be marked as a traitor. But in that moment, Tharkin didn't care. He was no longer the cold, calculating leader he once was. Something inside him had changed, And so, he made a decision that would alter the course of his life forever. Tharkin set his mind to leave the Empire and escape to Earth. But to do so, he would have to sabotage his own ship. It was a risky move, one that could cost him his life. He couldn't let his fleet track him down. If they found out what he was doing, he would be hunted down as a deserter, and no one would be able to save him. His only chance was to use the cloaking device on his ship to remain undetected while he fled. He worked quickly, sabotaging the ship's communication systems and disabling key parts of the command module. The alarms blared as he moved through the corridors, but he remained focused. There was no turning back. The moment he stepped onto Earth, there would be no more Empire, no more command. There would only be his search for answers. Once the sabotage was complete, Tharkin activated the cloaking device. His ship became invisible to any nearby sensors. He piloted the craft away from the fleet, careful not to draw attention. It was a dangerous maneuver, and the slightest mistake could mean detection. But he had made up his mind. His future was no longer with the Empire. He was going to Earth. The ship moved through space, narrowly avoiding patrols sent by the Empire. Tharkin used every bit of his experience to evade detection, crossing asteroid fields and navigating through dark patches of space where sensors were weak. It was a race against time. His ship's cloaking device wouldn't hold up forever, and the longer he remained hidden, the more likely it was that the fleet would send out a more thorough search. The journey was harrowing, but Tharkin's training and his deep knowledge of the Empire's fleet gave him an edge. He knew their weaknesses. He knew how to stay out of sight. But that didn't mean it was easy. There were several close calls. At one point, a drone from the Empire's fleet nearly caught his ship as it passed through a narrow asteroid belt. Tharkin barely avoided the detection grid, and his heart raced as he watched the drone pass by. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Tharkin's ship broke through the final stretch of space and entered Earth's orbit. It was a strange feeling. For the first time in his life, he was no longer part of the Empire. He was an outsider, a deserter. But he wasn't afraid. He was determined. Earth was his destination, and he was ready to face whatever lay ahead. As his ship landed on Earth, he marveled at the beauty of the planet below. The vast oceans, the towering mountains, the endless sky. It was nothing like the cold, lifeless worlds he had known in the Empire. There was something alive about Earth, something that stirred his soul. He knew he had made the right choice. But as Tharkin set foot on the Earth, he was not alone. Bonner and his team, who had been tracking him ever since they received word of his betrayal, were now hot on his trail. They had orders to find him, to capture him, and to determine if he could be trusted. After all, it was not every day that a general of the Galactic Empire defected to Earth. There were many questions that needed answering. The tension in the air was palpable. Tharkin knew he couldn't run forever. The humans would find him. But he also knew that he had to face them. He had to prove himself. He had to show them that he wasn't just another enemy. He wasn't just another alien invader. He had changed. He had seen humanity's strength, and he believed in it. But could Bonner and his team trust him? Would they believe that he had truly deserted the Empire for good? As Tharkin moved deeper into the human settlement, the suspense grew. His every step was watched. Every move was scrutinized. He knew the humans were watching, waiting to see if he would make a mistake. They didn't know whether to trust him or fear him. Would he betray them, or had he truly left the Empire behind? The answers were unclear, and the stakes were high. Tharkin's heart raced as he continued forward, not knowing what to expect. The future was uncertain, and the road ahead was filled with challenges. But he knew one thing. He was no longer an enemy. He had seen the heart of humanity, and it had changed him. He was ready to stand with them, to fight alongside them. No matter what the future held, Tharkin was determined to find his place on Earth, among the people he had once sought to destroy. Tharkin's heart pounded in his chest as he approached the human settlement, knowing that his fate was hanging by a thread. The towering buildings of Earth's military base loomed ahead, Their cold, intimidating walls filled with soldiers who would decide whether he lived or died. He had no more allies, no more escape routes. The past had come crashing down around him. And now, standing before the humans who had once been his enemies, Tharkin felt a sense of dread he had never known in all his years as a general. But as his feet touched the Earth's soil, one thing was clear. This was his only chance. The humans had caught wind of his defection, and now they were waiting for him. Bonner, the soldier whose bravery had changed everything, had been tasked with handling the situation. Tharkin knew Bonner would be skeptical. After all, what reason did he have to trust a former enemy? The Galactic Empire had been nothing but a source of pain and suffering for humanity, and here was its general, claiming to defect. Would Bonner accept him? Or would he be seen as just another alien invader to be dealt with? Tharkin knew he had to make his move quickly. He could not risk the humans doubting him or thinking he was trying to deceive them. The choice was simple. He had to surrender. He had to place his faith in the very people he had once sought to destroy. Walking toward Bonner and his team, Tharkin raised his hands in surrender. His once proud posture was now a gesture of vulnerability. He had no weapon, no defense. Only his words could save him now. "I surrender," Tharkin said, his voice steady but filled with a deep sense of desperation. "I want to defect. I seek asylum here on Earth." Bonner's eyes narrowed as he studied the alien general. There was no denying the suspicion that coursed through him. This wasn't a situation that could be taken lightly. A former enemy offering to join forces. It sounded too good to be true, but the sheer vulnerability in Tharkin's voice made Bonner hesitate. For a brief moment, Bonner saw something in Tharkin's eyes, something human, a flicker of remorse, a longing for something more than the endless war that had shaped his life. "Why?" Bonner asked, his voice cold, yet laced with curiosity. "Why come to us now? After everything your empire has done to us?" Tharkin swallowed hard, trying to find the right words. He could feel Bonner's eyes on him, probing, testing him. Tharkin had faced down armies, fought battles that had turned entire planets into ash. But none of that compared to the weight of the question that now hung in the air. His future, and the future of Earth, depended on this moment. "I've seen enough," Tharkin said quietly. "I've seen the destruction, the suffering, the endless cycles of violence. The Empire is not the force of justice it claims to be. We destroy entire civilizations without a second thought. And now I see that humanity is something we underestimated." Bonner didn't say anything immediately. His expression was unreadable. The silence between them stretched, broken only by the soft hum of machinery around them. The humans nearby were watching, whispering among themselves. There was a mixture of fear and curiosity in their eyes. They weren't sure whether to trust this alien general or see him as a threat. They knew what the Empire was capable of, but could they really believe that Tharkin had turned against it? The idea seemed impossible, but at the same time, they couldn't afford to ignore it. This was no ordinary defector. Tharkin was a general, someone who had Tharkin kept his head down, his mind focused on the task at hand. He had to earn their trust. He had to prove that he wasn't the same as the monsters he had once served. But he also knew that it wasn't going to be easy. There would be obstacles, and not everyone would accept him. Some would never forgive the actions of the Empire, and some would never see Tharkin as anything more than a monster in disguise. The humans gathered around, processing the information Tharkin had shared. They discussed tactics and next moves, strategizing for the war ahead. But as they worked together, there was something unmistakable in the air, a sense of unity, even if it was fragile. They were all fighting for the same thing: survival. And that made them allies, no matter how unlikely. Bonner stood nearby, listening to the plans being made, but his mind kept drifting back to the conversation he had with Tharkin. He didn't fully trust him yet, but there was something about the alien's willingness to defect, to stand with humanity, that resonated with him. Bonner had lost friends and comrades in the fight against the Empire. He had seen the horrors of war and the destruction it left in its wake. And now he was being asked to trust a former enemy. It wasn't easy. But the truth was that they were all in this together now. Tharkan's defection, for better or worse, had changed the course of the war. As Tharkan stood there, quietly observing the humans at work, he felt a strange sense of hope. The war was far from over, and there would be more battles to fight. But for the first time in a long while, he felt like he had a purpose again. He wasn't just a general for a ruthless empire. He was something more now, an ally, a warrior, and perhaps even a friend. And together with Bonner and the humans, he was ready to face the empire and its might. It was the beginning of a new alliance, one that would change the fate of the galaxy. The final battle was fast approaching. The empire had gathered its forces for one last assault, intending to crush Earth once and for all. Their fleet was massive, their technology far superior to anything humanity had ever seen. For years, the human race had been pushed to the brink, constantly fighting for survival against an overwhelming enemy. Yet now, after everything they had been through, humanity stood firm, ready to face the most terrifying force in the galaxy. Tharkan, the alien general who had once been the enemy, was now their ally. His defection had been the turning point. He had given the humans the knowledge they needed to stand a chance. The technology he shared, advanced weapons, defensive systems, cloaking devices, and more, had leveled the playing field. But now, they needed to do more than just defend. They needed to go on the offensive. And with Tharkan by their side, the humans had a fighting chance. As the Empire's fleet descended upon Earth, the humans prepared for the fight of their lives. Tharkan stood with Bonner, watching the alien ships overhead. The sky was dark with their presence, and a hum of battle readiness echoed across the land. The humans had no choice but to give everything they had. The battle began with a roar. Orbital bombardments rained down from the sky, a deafening sound that shook the very ground beneath their feet. The Empire's ships launched their weapons, their laser blasts tearing through the atmosphere, threatening to wipe out entire cities. But humanity, fueled by desperation and guided by Tharkan's intel, fought back fiercely. The humans used every weapon at their disposal, high-tech energy cannons, long-range missiles, and the new cloaking devices that made it almost impossible for the Empire's fleet to track them. The alien ships were formidable, but they were not prepared for the unpredictability and sheer determination of humanity. In the midst of the chaos, Tharkan worked alongside the humans, coordinating their movements and offering tactical advice. He had once commanded legions of soldiers, but now he was fighting for something greater. He was fighting for Earth, for humanity. His transformation from enemy general to trusted ally had been hard-earned, but now he was fully integrated with the humans. The trust they had placed in him was no longer a question. It was a bond, forged in the fires of war. As the battle raged on, Bonner and his team led ground assaults against the Empire's invading forces. Human soldiers stormed alien positions, engaging in close combat with overwhelming numbers of enemies. They fought tooth and nail, never giving an inch, even when it seemed like defeat was inevitable. Every inch of Earth's land was now a battleground, and every human soldier was determined to make sure that the Empire's plan would never come to fruition. The battlefield was brutal. Explosions lit up the sky as buildings crumbled and streets turned into war zones. Bonner's team fought with everything they had, each member showing incredible bravery. But the cost of this battle was unimaginable. As the hours passed, the human forces began to realize that this was not just about survival. It was about the future of their entire species. In the midst of the fighting, a heartbreaking moment struck. One of Bonner's closest comrades, a fellow soldier who had been with him since the beginning, was caught in an explosion. The blast sent him flying across the battlefield, his body landing in the debris. He had sacrificed himself to save his team, but the loss was devastating. Bonner rushed to his side, but there was nothing he could do. The soldier's final words were a message of hope for humanity's future, a future that, in that moment, seemed uncertain at best. The emotional toll of the loss hit Bonner hard, but he knew that his fallen comrade's sacrifice would not be in vain. It was a symbol of everything the humans were fighting for: their homes, their families, their future. But Bonner wasn't the only one grieving. Tharkin, too, felt the weight of the loss. He had fought in countless battles, seen countless comrades die, but this was different. These humans, the ones he had once seen as weak and insignificant, had become something he deeply respected. Their resilience, their courage, their unyielding determination, it was something the Empire had never counted on. Tharkin could see now that humanity was far more than just a race of survivors. They were fighters. They were heroes. Despite the loss, the battle continued, and the humans pressed on. The tide of war began to shift. With Tharkin's guidance, the humans launched a final counterattack. Using the advanced technology he had provided, they hit the Empire's fleet with everything they had. Orbital bombardments rained down, cloaked fighters swooped in from unexpected angles, and human soldiers fought tooth and nail to reclaim their land. The Empire, caught off guard by the sudden ferocity of the human counteroffensive, began to falter. Their ships, once so confident and powerful, began to retreat. The Empire's forces had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they were paying the price. One by one, the alien ships were destroyed, their shields faltering under the pressure of humanity's relentless assault. The Empire's final attempt at domination was failing. In the end, the humans stood victorious. The Empire had been driven back, and Earth had been saved. But the victory came at a great cost. The battlefield was littered with the bodies of fallen heroes, both human and alien. The sky, once dark with the alien fleet, was now clear, but the aftermath of the battle would take time to heal. Tharkin stood beside Bonner, gazing out over the wreckage. The once pristine cities were now rubble, the land scarred by the conflict. The war had taken so much, but it had also given them something priceless. Earth had proven that no matter the odds, no matter how powerful the enemy, humanity could rise above it. "I never thought I'd see this day," Tharkin said quietly, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and regret. "You've truly done it. You've defeated the Empire." Bonner nodded, his face solemn. "We've won, but it's not over. We've lost so much, but we're still here. We still have a future." Tharkin looked at him, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I didn't believe in you. I thought your people were weak. But now I see what you're capable of. I fought against you once, but now I will fight for you. I will protect your future, just as I'd learned to protect my own." Bonner nodded again. "We'll need all the help we can get." Together, they stood in the silence of the aftermath. The battle was over, but the work had just begun. Earth had survived, but the scars of war would remain. Yet, in that moment, there was a glimmer of hope. Humanity had triumphed, and despite the cost, they had proven that no challenge was too great. The story of their survival would be remembered for generations to come, a testament to the strength of the human spirit. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, and now the universe would see them for what they truly were: survivors, warriors, and, above all, champions of their own future. With Tharkin by their side, Earth had a new beginning, one where they would rise to meet any challenge that lay ahead. And no matter what the future held, they would never give up. Because humanity had proven that even in the face of the greatest adversity, they could stand tall together.